It was a sunny afternoon in a small suburban town, and the streets were quiet, lined with trees whose leaves shimmered in the gentle breeze. The yellow school bus made its usual rounds, picking up children from different neighborhoods. The driver, a calm man in his 50s, knew each child by name. He had seen them grow from tiny kindergartners to tall, chatty middle schoolers. Inside the bus, the air was filled with chatter and laughter. Kids were talking about their day, their favorite shows, what they wanted to eat for lunch, and the sports they played after school. The bus had a feeling of safety, routine, and comfort, where children felt secure during their daily commute. Among the children was a boy who loved to draw, sketching tiny doodles in his notebook while talking quietly to his friends. A little girl with braids clutched a small stuffed animal she never left home without. Another group of kids, older and more energetic, leaned against the seats, joking loudly and teasing one another in a way only siblings and close friends could. Everything seemed normal, just like any other day. The bus moved slowly down a familiar street when suddenly, the sound of motorcycles broke the calm. At first it was just a faint roar in the distance like distant thunder, but then it grew louder, faster, and more aggressive. A group of bikers appeared, speeding toward the bus. Their motorcycles were loud, and the men riding them wore leather jackets and helmets that made them look fierce and unapproachable. The sudden appearance of the bikers startled the children. They had never seen anything like this on their route. Some of them froze in their seats, wide-eyed and silent, while others clutched the edges of their seats as if holding on to a lifeline. The bikers rode aggressively alongside the bus, shouting at the children and waving their arms. The air was filled with the smell of exhaust and the sound of engines revving. It was intimidating, and the children's laughter vanished instantly, replaced by fear. The bus driver, sensing the danger, immediately slowed down, keeping the bus steady while trying to assess the situation. He reached for his radio to call the police, his voice calm but urgent as he explained the situation. Inside the bus, panic began to spread. A young boy started crying quietly, unsure of what was happening. The little girl with the stuffed animal squeezed it tightly, tears forming in her eyes. Older kids tried to remain brave, speaking in hushed tones to comfort the younger ones. The driver kept his eyes on the road while keeping one hand on the radio, repeating the situation to the dispatcher and hoping the bikers wouldn't become violent. The bikers began to circle the bus, trying to intimidate it further. One biker slammed against the side, shaking the vehicle slightly. The bus rocked and the children screamed. The driver slammed his foot on the brakes, slowing the bus even more to prevent a collision. The bikers yelled louder, revving their engines and making it clear that they were not going to leave easily. The children huddled closer to each other, holding hands and seeking comfort in each other's presence. Some of the older children tried to speak up, asking the bikers to leave them alone, but their voices were drowned out by the roar of engines and shouting. One of the bikers reached toward the bus, his gloved hand tapping against the side in a threatening manner. The bus rocked again and the children shrieked, their fear growing with every second. The driver's heart pounded, but he stayed calm, carefully maneuvering the bus to avoid hitting any obstacles while keeping the children safe inside. At that moment, a young boy whispered to his friend, asking if anyone was going to stop the bikers. The children had never felt so helpless. The driver's voice came over the intercom again, trying to calm them down, telling them to stay seated and hold on. Some children closed their eyes, praying silently, hoping that someone would come to their aid. As the bikers continued their aggressive ride alongside the bus, the surrounding streets remained unusually quiet. Neighbors peeked out of windows and front doors, some calling out to the bikers to leave the children alone. Others ran toward the street, unsure if they could do anything to help. The tension in the air was almost unbearable. The children were scared, the bus driver was focused but anxious, and the bikers were relentless in their intimidation. Suddenly, the bikers' behavior became more threatening. One tried to cut in front of the bus, forcing the driver to swerve slightly to avoid a collision. The bus rocked dangerously and the children screamed again. The driver took a deep breath, gripping the steering wheel tightly, trying to keep control. He radioed the police again, explaining the new development and hoping they would arrive quickly. Inside the bus, the children held on to each other. The boy with the notebook stopped drawing, his small hands gripping the pages as if it could protect him. The girl with the stuffed animal buried her face in it, trying to find comfort in the familiar scent of her toy. Other children tried to distract themselves, whispering stories and talking about what they would do once they were safe. The atmosphere inside the bus was tense, filled with fear, anxiety, and the desperate hope that help would arrive soon. The bikers rode aggressively around the bus, revving their engines and shouting, trying to scare the children further. One biker slammed his bike against the side again, causing a loud bang that echoed through the quiet street. The children screamed and the driver's heart pounded. He knew he had to keep the bus steady, avoid any accidents, and protect the kids inside. He glanced at the mirrors, seeing the bikers circling with a kind of reckless energy that made them unpredictable. Then, as the bus moved cautiously down the street, a few neighbors decided to step in. Some banged pots and pans from their porches, trying to distract the bikers. Others shouted at them, demanding that they leave the children alone. For a brief moment, the bikers hesitated, looking around at the growing attention. The driver used this moment to move the bus slightly faster, trying to create distance between the children and the aggressors. The tension inside the bus remained high. The children whispered to each other, holding hands and trying to stay brave. The boy with the notebook whispered to the girl with the stuffed animal, telling her it would be okay, though he wasn't sure himself. The driver's hands never left the steering wheel, his eyes scanning the road, mirrors, and surroundings. He could feel the biker's eyes on him, measuring his every move, waiting for an opportunity to act more aggressively. As the bus continued, the bikers' engines roared again, and they tried to block the path ahead. The driver carefully navigated around them, taking a slow turn onto a side street to avoid a potential collision. The children held their breath, fearing the worst. It was a tense, fragile situation, with the bus moving cautiously, the bikers surrounding it, and the children trapped inside, hoping for someone to arrive and save them from the escalating danger. The sounds of engines, shouting, and the children's frightened voices filled the air. The calm of the suburban neighborhood had vanished, replaced by chaos and fear. The driver's heart raced, but he remained composed, determined to get the children out safely. The children, clinging to each other and whispering reassurances, tried to keep their fear under control, though it was almost impossible with the bikers circling and shouting so close. At that moment, a shadow moved in the distance. Approaching quick, John Cena had decided to take a short jog that afternoon. He had been filming for long hours and wanted to clear his mind while enjoying the fresh air. The streets were familiar to him, lined with trees and quiet homes, a peaceful setting perfect for a calm run. He was focused on his rhythm, feeling the steady movement of his legs and the cool breeze against his face. Everything felt normal until he heard the roar of engines and shouting in the distance. Curious at first, he slowed down to see what was happening. His heart immediately recognized the urgency in the sounds, a tension in the air that told him something was wrong. As he approached the street, he saw a yellow school bus surrounded by several motorcycles. The bikers were moving aggressively, shouting at the children inside. Cena's instincts kicked in instantly. He knew that if he didn't intervene, the situation could become dangerous very quickly. Without hesitation, he increased his pace, sprinting toward the bus with determination. The sound of the engines and the fear in the children's eyes made his steps quicker and sharper. He had faced challenges before, but seeing children in danger made him feel a responsibility he could not ignore. The bus rocked slightly as one of the bikers slammed against its side. Children screamed, clutching each other in the seats for protection. The driver tried to maintain control, carefully steering the bus while calling the police over the radio. Cena moved closer, analyzing the bikers' positions and their aggressive energy. He knew he needed to approach in a way that would stop the attack without escalating the situation further. His experience and physical training gave him confidence, but he also understood that careful observation and quick thinking were essential. As Cena got closer, the bikers were still trying to intimidate the bus. Some rode alongside, while others tried to block the path ahead. Cena positioned himself on the street, making his presence visible. His large frame and calm but assertive demeanor made an immediate impact. The bikers turned toward him, laughing at first, thinking he might just be a passerby trying to stop them, but they quickly realized that this was not an ordinary man. Cena's eyes were focused and his movements were deliberate, giving the impression that he was ready for anything. He shouted at the bikers to stop, his voice strong and commanding. It carried through the street, loud enough to make them pause for a moment. The children inside the bus noticed him and felt a flicker of hope, seeing someone brave enough to stand in front of the aggressors. The bus driver also noticed Cena and nodded subtly, grateful that someone was there to help protect the children. For the first time since the attack began, the tension in the bus seemed slightly lighter. Cena had drawn attention away from the children, becoming the focal point for the bikers' aggression. The bikers hesitated. They had expected an easy target, not someone who would step directly into their path. Cena did not move aggressively toward them. Instead, he used his presence and voice to control the situation. He made it clear that any further aggressive behavior would not be tolerated. The bikers looked at each other, their confidence faltering as they realized they were facing someone who could handle the situation. Cena's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the bikers' erratic energy, creating an unexpected balance that made the aggressors rethink their actions. While the bikers assessed Cena, the bus driver slowly moved the vehicle forward. He kept the children safe inside while using every possible maneuver to avoid collisions. The children watched Cena, their fear gradually giving way to admiration. Some whispered to each other, expressing relief that someone had arrived to protect them. The youngest children clung tightly to their seats and stuffed animals, feeling safer knowing that a strong figure was intervening. Cena's focus never wavered. He remained alert to every movement of the bikers, ready to respond if the situation escalated. Cena approached one of the bikers who tried to ride closer to the bus. With a calm but firm voice, he instructed the biker to step back. The man hesitated, revving his engine, but Cena's presence and steady eye contact made it clear that he would not be intimidated. The biker reluctantly slowed down, giving the bus a little more space. Cena's strategic positioning allowed the driver to continue moving forward, slowly creating a gap between the children and the aggressors. Every movement was calculated, every action deliberate to ensure maximum safety for the bus passengers. The other bikers tried to act tough, circling around Cena and the bus. Some shouted, while others made gestures meant to scare. Cena did not respond with aggression. Instead, he remained calm, using his voice to give clear instructions. He made it clear that the attack had to stop immediately. The bikers, unsure of how to react to such composure in the face of confrontation, began to hesitate. Their aggressive energy was met with control and confidence, creating a subtle but powerful shift in the balance of power on the street. Children inside the bus started whispering to each other, noticing the change. The boy with the notebook peeked over his page, watching Cena stand firm, and felt a spark of courage. The girl with the stuffed animal held it tightly, feeling a sense of safety wash over her. The older children, who had tried to maintain bravery, now relaxed slightly, whispering words of encouragement to the younger ones. The bus driver, seeing the bikers hesitate, guided the bus carefully down the street, increasing the distance between the children and the threat. Each movement was precise, ensuring no sudden jerks or risks that could endanger the passengers. As Cena maintained his position, he also communicated with the bikers non-verbally. His body language was strong and assertive, but not threatening. He made eye contact with each aggressor, letting them know that he was in control of the situation. This silent communication was effective. The bikers began to lose some of their confidence, unsure of how to proceed. Cena's presence was enough to slow their actions, allowing the bus to continue moving safely. The confrontation on the quiet suburban street had reached a tense point. The bikers were circling the bus, revving their engines and shouting, trying to intimidate the children inside. John Cena stood firmly in the middle of the street, his eyes locked on the bikers, his body tense but controlled. He understood that any sudden movement could provoke a dangerous response, so he remained calm, relying on his presence to command respect and caution. The children inside the bus clutched each other, gripping seats and toys, their wide eyes following every movement outside. The bus driver carefully guided the vehicle, taking small turns to avoid collisions while keeping the children safe. Cena assessed the bikers quickly. Some of them were young, likely looking for trouble to prove themselves. Others were older, more experienced, trying to assert dominance through aggression. Cena understood that talking aggressively or rushing them could escalate the situation, so he focused on using calm authority to create control. He shouted firmly, warning the bikers to stop and back away from the bus. His voice was loud and clear, carrying strength and confidence that made it impossible to ignore. The bikers hesitated for a moment, unsure if he was bluffing or ready to act physically. The children whispered to each other inside the bus, finding courage in Cena's presence. The youngest held their hands tightly, hiding behind the older kids, but even they felt a glimmer of hope. The bus driver, sensing a small opportunity, moved the bus slowly forward, giving a little space while still maintaining safety. The bikers circled looking for an opening, but Cena's deliberate movements made it clear that no one would get past him easily. One biker tried to rev his engine aggressively, moving closer to the bus. Cena didn't flinch. He stepped firmly into the biker's path, raising his hands in a non-threatening but assertive gesture. His stance communicated control, telling the biker that there would be consequences for any rash actions. The biker hesitated, revving the engine again, but the steady gaze and calm confidence of Cena made him reconsider. It became clear that Cena was not just an ordinary man. He was a force that could not be easily intimidated. The bus driver carefully navigated around the street, using every available space to avoid a collision. He maintained a slow pace, careful not to startle the bikers or provoke them further. Inside, the children whispered, watching Cena, feeling safer as someone had taken control of the situation. Even the older children, who had tried to stay brave, relaxed slightly, realizing that help had arrived. The boy with the notebook peeked over the page, impressed by Cena's courage. The girl with the stuffed animal hugged it tighter, feeling comforted by Cena's presence. Cena's strategy was simple: protect the bus and children first, control the bikers' actions second. He spoke clearly and calmly, giving instructions to the bikers, warning them of the risks if they continued their aggression. Some bikers tried to appear tough, circling and revving engines, but the confidence and composure of Cena started to shift the energy. The aggressors, previously filled with reckless confidence, began to doubt their actions. They were facing someone who was not only strong but also intelligent and decisive, someone who could respond to their moves in real time. As the bikers hesitated, neighbors began to appear on their porches and in the yards. Some shouted at the bikers to leave the children alone. Others made phone calls to the police, reporting the escalating situation and urging urgent intervention. The presence of witnesses added pressure on the bikers, who were no longer acting freely. Cena noticed the support and subtly adjusted his position, guiding the bikers slightly away from the bus while still maintaining a safe distance for the children. Every movement was deliberate, designed to ensure safety while controlling the aggressors' options. One of the younger bikers, trying to assert dominance, rode closer to the bus. Cena stepped firmly in his path, making direct eye contact. His calm but authoritative voice warned the biker to stop and back away. The man hesitated, unsure if Cena would physically intervene. Cena's demeanor communicated that he could, but he preferred a peaceful resolution. The biker slowly eased back, realizing that aggression would not succeed. The children inside the bus whispered words of encouragement, feeling hope rise within them. The older bikers started exchanging glances, unsure of their next move. Cena continued to use his presence to control the situation. He didn't shout unnecessarily. He didn't act rashly, but his focus and intensity made it clear that he would respond if provoked. The street, once filled with chaos and fear, began to show signs of calm as Cena's authority took hold. The bus driver moved the vehicle carefully, slowly increasing the distance between the children and the bikers, while still navigating the tight streets. Some bikers revved their engines to try to scare Cena, but he remained unfazed. He kept his stance firm and his gaze steady, making it clear that he was not intimidated. The children noticed his courage, whispering to each other about the man outside protecting them. Even the youngest children felt a sense of safety, knowing that someone capable was standing between them and danger. The bus driver, grateful for the support, maintained careful control, steering the bus with precision and calm. Cena began to direct the bikers subtly, moving slightly to guide them away from the bus while keeping his stance protective. His movements were calculated, ensuring that the bikers felt pressure without feeling provoked. This careful balance of authority and calm was effective. The bikers, previously confident and aggressive, were now uncertain. They started to question their actions, realizing that the situation was no longer under their control. The children inside the bus whispered words of encouragement to each other, inspired by Cena's bravery. The sound of police sirens echoed through the streets, growing louder with each passing second. The bikers' hesitation had already created a small opening. and now the arrival of law enforcement added a sense of urgency to the situation. John Cena maintained his position, standing tall and calm in the middle of the street. His eyes were fixed on the bikers, observing every movement, ready to act if needed. The children inside the bus watched intently, their fear still present but slowly being replaced with a growing sense of hope. The youngest clutched their seats tightly, peeking through fingers, while older children whispered words of encouragement to each other. The bus driver continued to maneuver carefully, using the additional space and the distraction of the approaching police to create a safer path. Each turn was deliberate, ensuring the bus stayed on the road and avoided collisions. The children whispered quietly to each other, their voices mixed with fear and relief. They could see Cena standing firm, confronting the bikers with a calm determination that gave them a sense of security they had not felt moments before. The atmosphere on the street was tense but shifting, as the bikers realized they could no longer act without consequences. One biker tried to rev his engine aggressively, attempting to intimidate Cena and the bus. Cena stepped forward slightly, his voice firm and commanding as he warned the biker to stop. The man hesitated, unsure whether to continue his aggression. The presence of the police approaching added pressure, making the bikers reconsider their actions. Cena's calm authority, combined with the imminent arrival of law enforcement, created a situation where the bikers' confidence began to crumble. They were no longer in control, and the street felt like a place where their reckless behavior could not go unchallenged. The bus driver guided the vehicle slowly but steadily, keeping the children safe and creating distance from the aggressors. Inside the bus, the children clung to each other, some holding onto toys or backpacks for comfort. The boy with the notebook peeked over the edge of his book, watching Cena's every move, feeling inspired by the bravery and calm of the man protecting them. The girl with the stuffed animal hugged it tightly, a small smile appearing on her face as the danger began to feel less immediate. Even the older children, who had tried to maintain courage, whispered quietly to each other about the hero outside the bus. Cena continued to face the bikers with controlled authority. He used his presence to block any attempts to surround the bus, guiding them subtly without physical confrontation. His calm voice carried over the noise of engines and shouting, warning the bikers to leave immediately. The bikers exchanged glances, uncertainty creeping into their expressions. Cena's strategy was effective. He had shifted the balance of power without escalating the situation further. The street, once filled with chaos and fear, now held a sense of order, guided by his unwavering focus and confidence. As the police cars neared, the bikers' hesitation grew. They could see the flashing lights and hear the sirens, realizing that their window of opportunity to act without consequence was closing. Cena's steady presence gave the bus driver the chance to guide the vehicle down a side street, increasing the distance between the children and the threat. The children whispered to each other, their fear still present but tempered with relief. They could sense that the situation was changing, and that safety was within reach. One biker attempted a final act of aggression, revving his engine and moving toward the bus, but Cena stepped directly into his path. His voice was calm but firm, warning the biker to stop immediately. The man hesitated, his confidence shaken by Cena's unwavering stance and the approaching police. The children inside the bus watched in awe, whispering words of gratitude and hope. Cena's focus remained unbroken, his attention divided between the bikers, the bus, and the approaching officers. He maintained control, ensuring that no sudden actions could endanger the children. The bus continued moving cautiously, guided by the driver who relied on Cena's intervention to navigate safely. The children whispered to each other, finding comfort in Cena's presence. Even the youngest began to relax slightly, trusting that someone strong and capable was there to protect them. The older children, inspired by the bravery and strategy of Cena, spoke softly to reassure the younger ones. The street was no longer dominated by chaos. A sense of order had emerged, maintained by Cena's careful actions. The police arrived, surrounding the bikers and blocking potential escape routes. The bikers realized that further aggression would lead to immediate consequences. Cena continued to stand firm, ensuring that the bus remained safe while the officers took control of the situation. The children inside the bus clutched each other, whispering prayers and words of relief. The driver guided the bus slowly past the scene, grateful for Cena's intervention that allowed them to move safely. The bikers, faced with both Cena and the police, finally ceased their aggressive behavior and retreated, understanding that the situation was no longer under their control. Cena approached the bus, ensuring that every child was accounted for and unharmed. The children, still holding on to each other and their belongings, looked at him with admiration and gratitude. Some whispered thank you, their voices trembling but sincere. The bus driver stepped out, shaking Cena's hand and expressing deep appreciation for his courage and quick thinking. The children, now feeling safe, whispered excitedly to each other about the hero who had protected them. Cena reassured everyone, speaking calmly and humbly, reminding them that protecting others was a responsibility everyone shared. Neighbors who had gathered on the street began to clap and cheer quietly, recognizing Cena's bravery and the safety he had provided. Some had recorded the scene on their phones, capturing moments of courage and control in the midst of chaos. The bikers were detained by the police and the situation was finally under control. The children slowly began to relax, whispering to each other and looking at Cena with admiration. The bus driver guided the vehicle back to the regular route, ensuring that every child reached their destination safely. As the bus drove away, the children whispered among themselves, recounting the events and sharing their gratitude. The boy with the notebook drew a small sketch of Cena, capturing the moment of bravery he had witnessed. The girl with the stuffed animal held it tightly, smiling softly as she thought about the protection they had received. Even the older children, who had tried to appear brave, felt inspired and grateful for Cena's intervention. The driver, reflecting on the events, felt a deep sense of relief and appreciation for the man who had stepped in at the right moment. The street gradually returned to its normal calm, but the memory of the event lingered. The children would remember the bravery, the calm, and the sense of safety provided by someone willing to stand up in the face of danger. Cena, having ensured the children were safe, walked away with a quiet sense of satisfaction, knowing that his presence had made a real difference. The police continued their work, ensuring that the bikers were held accountable for their actions. The community, having witnessed such courage, felt a renewed sense of safety and appreciation for those who step up to protect others. The children would carry this experience with them, not only as a moment of fear, but also as a lesson in bravery and hope. The bus driver would recount the story for years, highlighting the calm, strategic, and courageous actions that had saved the children. Cena's intervention had transformed a dangerous situation into a story of protection, quick thinking, and courage. The day would be remembered as one where ordinary people, including a man jogging through the neighborhood, became heroes for those who needed it most. The children, now safe, whispered to each other with excitement and relief, knowing that they had witnessed something extraordinary and life-changing. One biker tried to ride alongside the bus, looking for an opportunity to intimidate the children further. Cena positioned himself strategically, blocking the path while keeping a safe distance. His voice was firm but calm, warning the biker to stop. The man hesitated, unsure if Cena would act physically. Cena's presence alone was enough to create doubt. The children inside the bus watched in awe, whispering to each other, feeling a sense of hope they hadn't felt moments before. The bus driver took advantage of the biker's hesitation, slowly maneuvering the vehicle down a side street to create more distance. The children clung to their seats, whispering prayers and words of comfort to each other. Cena continued to control the biker's movements, maintaining his calm and confident stance. His focus never wavered. He was ready for any sudden action, but worked to ensure that the confrontation did not escalate further. The street, once filled with chaos, began to show signs of calm as Cena's authority and strategy took effect. The bikers exchanged uncertain glances, their confidence shaken. Cena remained firm, using his presence, voice, and careful movements to maintain control. The children inside the bus whispered words of admiration and gratitude, feeling protected in a way they hadn't moments before. The bus driver continued to steer carefully, using every available space to ensure safety, while gradually increasing the distance from the aggressors. Cena's intervention had created a sense of order and hope in the midst of a dangerous situation. Minutes passed, and the bikers remained hesitant. Cena maintained his position, ready to respond if necessary, but continuing to rely on his calm authority. The children inside the bus whispered to each other, their fear slowly giving way to courage and admiration. The bus driver, seeing the shift in the bikers' energy, carefully guided the bus toward a safer path. Cena's presence, focus, and strategic actions had created a turning point. The tension in the street remained, but hope had emerged as a new force. Cena's courage and quick thinking had given the children a sense of safety and the possibility that the situation could be resolved without anyone getting hurt. The street around them began to fill with curious neighbors. Some shouted from their porches asking the bikers to stop. Others made calls to the police reporting the situation and urging for immediate response. The presence of witnesses added to the pressure on the bikers. Cena noticed the additional support and subtly adjusted his position to guide the bikers away from the bus and toward the side of the street. His goal was clear: protect the children first and foremost without letting the situation spiral out of control. The bikers tried to regroup, but Cena's strategic approach kept them off balance. He remained alert to every engine rev, every shout, and every movement, ready to step in physically if necessary, though he hoped it wouldn't come to that. The children, still frightened, started to whisper words of thanks to the man outside the bus, feeling safe in a way they hadn't moments before. The bus driver's focus remained on navigating safely, grateful for Cena's intervention that allowed him to do so without the immediate threat closing in. Every step Cena took was measured. He ensured that the bikers couldn't surround the bus completely, giving the driver enough room to maneuver. He used his voice, gestures, and presence to control the street, making the aggressors think twice before making another aggressive move. The balance of power had shifted, and the bikers, realizing they were no longer in full control, started to show signs of hesitation. This small shift gave the children and driver hope that the situation could be resolved without anyone getting hurt. As minutes passed, the tension on the street remained high. Cena's endurance and focus never wavered. The children watched, whispering to each other about the man who had come to their rescue. The bus driver's eyes flicked to Cena, silently thanking him for stepping in and taking control. The bikers continued to circle, but their energy had changed. They were less aggressive, more uncertain. Cena's calm yet commanding presence had started to turn the tide, proving that courage, strategy, and composure could confront even the most reckless threats. The street seemed to hold its breath as Cena and the bikers faced each other. Children clutched their seats, some hiding their faces while peeking through their fingers. The driver continued guiding the bus carefully, making sure every child remained safe. Cena's focus was unwavering. He was ready for any sudden move. But he also worked to ensure that the bikers realized the consequences of their actions. The air was thick with anticipation, a mixture of fear and hope, as everyone waited for what would happen next. Lie. The children didn't notice it at first, too focused on the immediate danger surrounding them. The driver caught sight of it in the corner of his eye, his heart skipping a beat. Something was coming fast, someone moving with purpose, and the bikers hadn't noticed it yet. There was a sense of anticipation, a flicker of hope that perhaps help was on the way, though none of them knew what form it would take. The bikers continued their aggressive behavior, not aware that someone capable and strong was approaching. The bus driver kept his hand steady on the wheel, his focus unwavering. The children whispered to each other, hoping that the situation wouldn't get worse before help arrived. The street felt tense, almost like the world was holding its breath, waiting for the next moment that could change everything. The school bus moved slowly but steadily, each turn and movement deliberate. The children clutched their seats, some closing their eyes, others peeking through their fingers. The driver's voice remained calm over the intercom, encouraging them to stay seated and reassuring them that he was doing everything he could to protect them. The bikers rode alongside, unaware that their recklessness might soon be met with an unexpected force. As the bus moved along the side street, the approaching figure grew clearer. The children caught glimpses of someone running toward the chaos, moving quickly and with determination. Their fear mingled with curiosity, wondering who this person could be and whether they would be able to stop the bikers. The driver also noticed a spark of hope lighting in his eyes. For the first time since the danger began, it felt like someone might actually intervene and help them escape safely. The bikers continued to circle, but their attention began to shift slightly as they noticed the approaching figure. The engines roared, the children whispered, and the driver's hands remained steady on the wheel. The tension in the air was thick, and the situation remained precarious, with every second carrying the possibility of danger or rescue. The scene on the street was chaotic yet full of potential. The moment before an unknown hero would step in and change everything for the children trapped on the bus.